Hi, welcome back to the Pot Smoker's Bible. My name is Zion. I'm the author of the Pot Smoker's Bible, which contains the prophetic book of Zion, where I get my name and my authority. Now, today, we're talking about the second part of the general reading of the 19th chapter of the Pot Smoker's Bible, which is the 16th chapter of the book of Zion. Now, I'm going to take up where I left off last time. The Torah tells us that in a just society everyone is content, but in an unjust society the people will howl. Our last chapter illustrates that point. The only people happy in this society are the rich. According to the Torah, this is an unjust, unhappy society. And the blame, of course, is the government's. When a government, like ours, overstates its given authority for personal gain, then it is time for that government to end. Our Bill of Rights even states that when the American government begins to take away the rights of the people, as it has for my people, then we are obligated to overthrow the government because they have been found guilty of violating their own precepts and the Constitution of the United States of America. They are, in a sense, in a state of treason. As I've said before, the war on drugs is not and has never been constitutional. It violates the Bill of Rights, the basis for all American laws, and as such, we Zionites have the right to self-determination, the pursuit of happiness, and the right to privacy. So, the government has always been, and shall always be, wrong on the war on drugs. And history teaches us that when a government oppresses its citizens, eventually the citizens rise up and overthrow them. All totalitarian regimes end in an uprising. So, according to historical evidence, the people of Zion are in a position to rise up to overthrow their oppressors, as all others have before them. It's in our history. No one can live forever under the gun. Those who are oppressed can only live that way for a time. Human nature itself gives us the will to both live and be free. Our newly awakened gray side gives us the right to exist. Those two factors make us prime candidates for a revolution. We cannot go on living our lives in peril. We will become wary of the strain. Everyone has a breaking point. That place where you just simply stop trying to restrain your natural impulses. My people have reached that point. We are ready, willing, and able to do whatever we have to do to end the atrocities called the war on drugs. This society has tried to beat us into submission. They have tried to force us to comply with their ideals. They have tried to make us believe in their lies. They have tried to kill us outright. But we are still here. We are still Zionite. No one, government or otherwise, can uncreate us. So, our future is set. The governments and society have put themselves in a position of loss. They have ignored history and human nature to create a situation that they cannot logically win. And by oppressing an innocent people, they have set the stage for their own destruction. And now it is done. My people didn't want this life. We just wanted to have a good time. We enjoy doing drugs. We like to get high. We love to stumble around drunk. We haven't hurt anyone. We didn't force our way of life on anyone else. So, why do we have to live like this? What real reason does the government have for denying us the right to do drugs? Prior to 1939, what evidence is there that drugs are so harmful to society that the government of the United States had to enact laws to protect the citizenry against them? Because that is the real question. By what right? So, let's look at the facts. In the 19-teens, the first federal laws were passed against the possession of a drug, cocaine. At that time, traveling salesmen were using cocaine to lace quasi-medicines, which they would then sell to the public. This cocaine-laced poison was dangerous. No one had any way of knowing what else was in the drug. Many people died as a result. The need for laws to protect the people from these unscrupulous salesmen was real and very necessary. But it was not the cocaine that was the reason for the laws. It was the unsafe use of it by the traveling salesman that had to be addressed, not the use of the drug in its natural state, but the dangerous actions of salesmen that was the problem. The next drug that was prohibited was alcohol. The prohibition of alcohol was the first true drug law. It sought to end the outright use of the drug in all forms. It was enacted to placate an overly zealous religious lobbyist group who forced the government to pass it. And as we all know from history, it didn't work. In fact, it was a disaster of major proportions. The Roaring Twenties roared because of the violence that came from the laws. The minority holier-than-thou religious fanatics that created the prohibition set in motion a horrific decade of bloodshed and debauchery that still affects us to this day. Our society is so violent today because of the violence that started in the 20s. Anyone looking at the events of the 20s should realize that the government can't force its citizens to give up their vices. To do so is to invite rebellion. The speakeasies and the mafia violence testifies to that fact. Of course, the prohibition didn't last. Way too many Americans drank way too much alcohol to stand for such a law. So the first true drug law was a complete failure. Why then would our government create similar laws when it was proven to be ineffective? Why would any government enact laws that didn't work? Because the Roaring Twenties was a very lucrative time for the government. The government made a lot of money from the prohibition, and both state and federal governments expanded their internal police forces and their authority. It was a means to increase taxes and profits and power. The governments profited off the laws. Currently, the cost of the war, i.e. the government's profit, stands at $13.7 billion, and that's just for this year. The true reason for the war on drugs is the government's profit and power. The war on drugs has created a police state, every citizen of this nation is now under the government's watch. No one is safe from the police. Police violence has become commonplace. How many non-drug users have been killed by the police in the name of the war on drugs? I can think of several. The war on drugs has created a police force that shoots first and then says it's sorry. The violence of this society is a direct result of the actions of the state. Gang violence, as we know it today, began as a response to police brutality. People formed gangs to protect themselves from the police. It's also necessary because there were no means to regulate commerce. Legal businesses have laws and regulations to ensure equal and fair trade and the rights of all concerned. But drugs have no established economic mainframe. The gangs are akin to corporations. The business is drugs. It's a commodity. The war on drugs created an unnatural economic environment, making the gangs' formation inevitable. The war on drugs has done irrepressible damage to society. It has robbed us of billions and billions of dollars every year. It has created a violent society in response to a more violent police state. But what is the reason for the government creating? What is the reason the government gave the American people for creating the war on drugs? The reason the prohibition started was to suppress two minority groups and to give a corporation an unfair means to profit. One of the largest corporations in America is responsible for the atrocities enacted against the people of Zion. I'm going to stop here and let you wonder who this corporation could possibly be. And the next time, we will find out who they are and how they screwed the world and why. So, until then, may the gray watch over you, protect you, guide you, keep you all from harm. May you always be worthy of them. May your thoughts, words, and deeds reflect truth, good, and light. May you always be happy and high. Know that I love you. I am here to champion your cause, to give you a wonderful, bright future, and to prove to all that we are not what they say we are. So, until next time, I will say later, because you know I will never say goodbye.